Nottingham, founded by the Danes, is the administrative capital of the county of Nottinghamshire. It is a modern city with its share of splendid medieval, Victorian and modern buildings. With a population of some 400,000, it is the 7th largest city in England. Home to Robin Hood, the legendary outlaw, D.H. Lawrence, the writer, and William Booth, founder of the Salvation Army. It is where the English Civil War began in 1642. Nottingham is a bustling industrial city with a thriving multi-ethnic population. Among the many ethnic groups are people of African and African Caribbean descent, who make up about 3% of the population. This is the story of their links with the city, links that stretch back more than 3 centuries. In 18th century England, black servants were a fashionable accessory for high society families, and often appeared on paintings of this period. There were approximately 15,000 black people in England in the 1760s, many of whom were slaves brought to England by their owners from plantations in the Americas. One of the earliest known black people to reside in Nottingham was a servant, an African known as Joseph, the Black Prince of Clifton. Joseph worked in the country house of the Clifton family, whose estate was in the south of the city. Not much is known about the life of this man. However, he is remembered in the parish church of St. Mary the Virgin in the village of Clifton. In the summer of 1996, 2 local historians went in search of his resting place.
We're now in the church in Clifton. The sign is here. St. Mary the Virgin Clifton. And Joseph, as it's said there, commonly known as the Black Prince, is buried here. He was in the service of the Clifton family, and Clifton Hall, which is just across there, would have been the house of the
Lord of the Manor,
the Clifton family. And Joseph is baptized in this church. We're not sure what age he was, but it would suggest that he might have been a young man, and is buried, according to the stone, inside the church. In the south transept. He was supposed to be exceptional.
But we think he was some mourner servant,
yeah,
for the fact that he was buried inside the church.
Yeah.
And with him being called the Black Prince,
that's from some nobility.
It seems if he was more than a servant, unless he was part of the family.
Because to be buried in a church was quite something.
It was some dignity, yes. He was someone that...
The other thing is that he was exceptionally tall, and
7 foot, wasn't he?
About 7 foot, and there is a notch outside the church which we can see, which is supposed to be the measurement when he stood outside the church, which is very unusual, but this is written in the annals. We can go along and have a look at that now. Joseph is recorded. It was supposed to be of exceptionally tall, and this notch here is said to be the notch when he was standing off the ground.
Which we assume the step wasn't there.
Perhaps, yes, the step wasn't there then, and it would be suggested he was 6'5", 6'6", or up to 7 foot.
Well, he must be, because you see, I'm 5'6".
Yeah. So
if you put that on the top, I think you'd be around at 7 foot.
Yeah, and this marking there, if you like to.
Olude Equiano was born around 1745 in the eastern part of what is now modern Nigeria. He was captured and sold to slave traders and taken to Barbados, where he was sold as a slave. He was one of the few slaves fortunate enough to attend school and able to buy his freedom. After an adventurous life in which he travelled to Britain, Canada, the Arctic and the Mediterranean, he settled in London and became active in the abolitionist movement. Olude travelled around the country, tirelessly speaking against the evils of slavery. He visited Nottingham in 1790, where his eloquence won over many to the anti-slavery cause. In 1663, the Royal Adventurers into Africa obtained a charter to supply slaves to the English plantations in the Americas. This marked the official start to one of the most heinous episodes in British history. It has been suggested that more than 15 million Africans were landed alive, and that between 1445 and 1870, Africa lost altogether 40 to 50 million of its population as a result of slavery. Rapine and plunder, organised manhunt, kidnapping that bred more kidnapping was the nature of this odious trade in human misery. Of those transported in British ships, 1 in 4 perished on the journey across the Atlantic. George John Scipio Africanis, a native of Sierra Leone, was brought to England in 1766 at the tender age of 3 and given as a present to one John Molyneux, a squire of Wolverhampton. He served his apprenticeship as a brass founder in Wolverhampton before moving to Nottingham, having gained his freedom from the Molyneux family. He lived in the city for nearly 50 years, where he was known as the keeper of the Register Office for Servants in Chandler's Lane. He died in May of 1834, aged 71, and was buried in the graveyard of St Mary the Virgin in High Pavement in the Lace Market. Here we see our 2 historians in search of the resting place of George John Scipio Africanus.
He used to have grown up over it. The spot is here, really. And then we're lucky because this cross here represents, the grave was either to the right or to the left of it. So Africanus is buried here. We know that from the accounts which we've got. The only thing that we haven't got is the actual gravestone, which could have been broken and destroyed. But this was a cross of a grave which was adjacent to Africanus' grave. So really, it's exciting in the sense that we can actually establish, because up until now no one has actually managed to establish where Africanus has been buried. But from the clues from a newspaper article in 1976, where someone actually made this very important observation that from this. Just coming a moment, it says, what is the story behind this almost forgotten grave in St Mary's Churchyard, Nottingham? Easily visible from Kay's Walk, which is that one, this little walkway here. It says, certainly the name George Africanus suggests an early link with Africa. He died at the beginning of the 19th century, and the grave has aroused the curiosity of one Evening Post reader who'd taken a photograph. The gravestone has been partially covered by a cross near it, which is that one. And when the person photographed it, you could see from the photograph there that the cross was broken off at the top. And it says the gravestone has been partially covered by a cross near it, damaged by weather or vandals, but the stone would appear to have become missing. Now, that's significant, but the fact is that we can actually locate where he was buried, and it's possible in time we could get another stone
around this area,
put back in this area, at least to mark where he's buried.
You see, what's puzzling, that stonework is missing from here.
Yes.
that was on that
It
picture.
looks as if it's been missing for a long time, by the way the soil is very thin.
Well, somebody might have took it up, you see, for some reason.
There is very little visual evidence of the black presence in Nottingham for the remainder of the 19th century. During the harsh depression years of the 1920s and 30s, black men and women were to be found living itinerant lives, travelling around the country to race courses and fairgrounds, where they worked as tipsters, entertainers, boxers, and purveyors of herbal cures. They were mainly from the Caribbean and West Africa. Dressed in elaborate costumes, they masqueraded as African chiefs and witch doctors. They sold what they described as genuine African herbal cures. They were truly colourful characters, with names such as Prince Monolulu, Professor Edgar B. Knight, the Abyssinian herbalist, and Prince Zelemka. Ernest Mark, a West African, along with these colourful characters, was an annual visitor to the Nottingham Goose Fair.
Now, when I came back to England, of course the restart was long finished, but it wasn't much different. No jobs. That's how I became my own boss, working for myself. That was in I was over 20 years old anyway. So the only job I could do, which the black man was still, although they dislike us, they didn't want like us, but they look at us as some sort of museum piece. The restaurant was long finished. So in that way, I was able to make money from them. I go in the marketplaces, sell Lucky Charms, sell horoscope with my pictures on it and things, dressed like an Arab. I still got some of them, some of the copy right here now, because I say things right there upstairs. And then, and that's how I first went to Nottingham Goose Fair. I heard about it because we talked to each other and asked each other, we hustlers, when is this, when is that fair, when is that fair? And I went there with a boy from Ghana in those days, the Gold Coast. He was Sonny, that was his name. His job was to weigh people, to carry a hell of a big scale with him. Weigh them, and if he wins, they pay. If he lost, he hasn't got the weight up to 3 pounds or 4 pounds, they get, the ride is free. So he makes his living. He doesn't have to pay if he lost. I guess your weight, I guess your weight. I'm being a black man, and at that time black people were a kind of curiosity. The crowd soon gathered around us. In fact, it was Sammy that told me about Nottingham Goose Fair. So I think I walked there about twice, I think. I met a man called Hughes, but I can't think of his first name now. It so happened he used to be a professional flyweight boxer. And he used to have fairgrounds, you see, boxing booth, one in Nottingham Goose Fair, all over the place. So he put the gloves on me, and he knew I could do something, because while I was in the army, that's one thing I will say, I was taught to box in the army, you see. So I got a job. We used to challenge, when the crowd around, there was about, I think, 4 of us, myself with another black fella called Wilkie. He was from Nigeria, you see, and 2 white fellas. We used to stand in front of the rostrum, the crowd looking at the shoes, who they want to fight. And if they can stand 5 rounds, no, it was 3 rounds. If they could stand 3 rounds, they would get £5. £5 was a lot of money. But then, everything can be fixed. Everything was in our favor with the boxers. You see, because if the boy is too strong for you, all you have to do is footwork. Bam, 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 get away until 3 rounds, because the point is to knock you out. And if you can't knock you out, he can't get the £5. And we're not going to allow ourselves to be knocked out. And when we got into real trouble in the corner, if we were cornered, the bell rang suddenly. Time, the man is looking after his money. So that was nothing.
Thousands of black servicemen from the West Indies came to Britain to fight for this country in 2 world wars. They came because England, the mother country, was in trouble and needed their help to fight to restore freedom and democracy. One Second World War veteran said, "When war broke out, Jamaica sent a telegram to England saying, 'We will send a squadron of planes,' and they collected a penny from each Jamaican. At first they thought it would buy 1 plane, but it was enough to buy a squadron of planes." During the war, many of these servicemen were stationed at military bases in the East Midlands: RAF Scrampton, Belton Park, Skellingthorpe, Siston and Newark. At the end of the war, many of them chose to settle in Nottingham, thus forming the nucleus of the present black population. At the end of the Second World War, there was a shortage of manpower, and so Britain turned to its colonies to make up the shortfall. The 1948 Nationality Act granted United Kingdom citizenship to the people of the colonies and former colonies. On the 22nd of June 1948, 492 Jamaicans came ashore from the Empire Windrush at Tilbury Docks. Thousands more heeded the call and migrated to this country over the next 15 years, many experiencing discrimination and colour prejudice for the first time. Settling in cities such as London, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool and Nottingham, they worked in hospitals, on the buses and in factories, often doing menial jobs way below the level of their skills and qualifications. Pay was low, conditions harsh, and promotional prospects nil. Settling into their new homeland was often a strange and difficult exercise. There was, of course, no formal induction into the ways of this strange land that was to become home.
Was it that the whites and host communities thought of us as just being temporary sojourners, people passing through?
No, yes, that is one view, but majority of the things that were imposed upon them, that we were here without their consent, you see?
That's the ordinary man's view.
Yeah, the ordinary man's view, that we shouldn't have been here, you understand? That
taking their jobs, perhaps.
Taking their jobs back, and then don't forget their perception of us. You understand? That example, why should a black man have a drink in the same pub as myself, drinking from the same glass? They've developed a superiority complex over the centuries. I have to tell you how I came to work in the mines. I told you I was in the army, and in the army I was trained as an electrician, called the Royal West African Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. In the Royal Frontier Force, yes. I was trained as a REMI, branch of the REMI. So I had an electrical background. Anyway, that boosted my hope that Britain, I might have the opportunity to become a full electrician. So when I arrived in Liverpool, I went to a little exchange there and showed them my army documents and said I wanted to become an electrician. The counter clerk was shocked. The electrician said, "They won't have you there. That's a closed shop industry. I said, what do you mean by closed shop? He said, no matter how good you are trained in Africa, they won't accept you. You have to be chosen here by the union and the management to be trained. But never mind that, he tells me, I've got a good job for you. The best paid so far. I said, where? Mines. He said, mines? No, never worked in a mine, coal mines. Said, we'll train you and you'll be earning about £8 a week. This was $9.48 a week while training. Well, I was with my people in Liverpool, as I told you, Calabari people, seamen. And I told them, they said, what are you talking about? We won't allow you to go there. Peoples of Midlands are evil people. In fact, we had some Africans went there and they never turned back. They were making pies. They were making pies out of them. I said, so you mean that, oh yeah, there are cannibals there too. Haven't you heard of Sweeney Todd? He was making one of the sweetest pies in London.
Out of black people?
No, well, out of human flesh. I said, oh well. I said, Liverpool is all right, it's like home, but I like to have some money to spend. So I'll give it a try. And that's how I accepted the position. They posted me to Yorkshire for training. From Yorkshire for my training, it was like the military style. After training, we were dispatched to different coal fields. That's how I came to Nottingham.
Dr. Robert Wellesley Cole was one of the first black doctors to practice in Nottingham. Descendant of an African prince who was kidnapped, rescued and settled in Sierra Leone, he arrived in Britain in 1928, aged 21, with 2 British degrees, B.A. Durham Affiliate, Mathematics and Classics, and B.A. London External, Philosophy. He later qualified in medicine at Newcastle. Dr. Cole became the first African to be elected a Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons. In 1950 he set up practice at Tremaine Road in the Bilborough area of Nottingham. Later he spent time in Africa working in the newly independent Sierra Leone and Nigeria, laying down the foundations of their medical system before retiring to Nottingham in the 1970s.
The room was very cold, but they say the next day I went down to the labour exchange and I got a job at Chilwell.
Straight away?
Yes, I got a job.
So,
and it
so
was,
you come one day and the next day you went to the exchange?
Yes.
Just like that?
Yes, and we did get a job at Chilwell. And it was, the room was very cold. The work at work was very cold. I didn't know that we should make fire in the house. And leaving work, coming home, I said, well, this place is hell. I can't live here. I was really cold. And this Indian man, one day I said to him, wait, what happened? He said, we live in the cold place. He said, you don't make fire? I said, make fire where? He said, in the room. And I said, no, you can't make fire in the room. He said, all right, let her come and show you. And he came up and he cleaned out the fireplace and get some wood, put some coal in, and he made the fire for me. And I feel like I was in heaven now.
Right, right.
I've been in this country for 40 years, and I've always lived in Nottingham, and I love it here. I've never lived anywhere else. I found it easy to get a job when I came here because I worked first as a machinist, and I'm retired now.
In August 1958, Nottingham experienced an outbreak of anti-black rioting. On the evening of Saturday the 23rd, there was fighting between blacks and whites in the St Anne's Wells Road area. The police stated that this was reprisal by coloured people for previous incidents, when some of their numbers were attacked by white men. For some time after, black people continued to suffer harassment in the area, with their homes being attacked. Rioting broke out in Notting Hill Gate, West London, a month later. Since the 1960s, Nottingham has seen a string of successful black people in various professions.
Growing up as a black youth in Nottingham, I feel that it's very hard to like get jobs and stuff like that, because there's a shop just down there, this game shop. They've got a poster in the window and it says help wanted, and I went in the other day to ask about a work experience place, and they blatantly told me in my face no. I think it was just because of my black face, really.
Now all I want to do is I want to get an education through this system and just go out of Nottingham, because truly down here it ain't good to get an education down here and say that you're going to get a certain job. It ain't going to work. You have to go somewhere out of Nottingham, like Canada. That's where I want to go. I want to go to Canada.
Yeah, growing up as a black person in Nottingham, find it very difficult. I'm 32 now, so most of the youth what are growing up now are going to find it even harder. The way things are going, hard to get a job. It's just pressure from both sides at the end of the day. And
go to college and study.
It's all about money. Even if the black youth wanted to go to college, there's no money around for them to go on the course what they want to do. Especially at my age anyway, because I'm 32. So if I wanted to go to college, and if I went down to the DHS to find out more about it, they tell me I have to pay for it, and they're not prepared to help me out. But they're saying that I need a skill to get a job. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't know what's happening.
Up in Nottingham, it's all right. There's quite a lot to do. There's a lot of things for young black women to do, like there's the Try group, where I go every Wednesday. We're going to do a comparative study on Nottingham and Atlanta, Georgia this year, and we're going in July.
Young black people, I don't think there is anywhere for them to go, really.
Just the streets.
It's true.
Life on
They're
the
underage,
streets.
so they can't really, not supposed to really be in their club, so there's nothing for them, I don't think.
We need more youth clubs,
Yeah,
but when
yeah.
people say youth clubs, I mean, when you're reaching the age of 18, people say youth clubs, now allow that. They ain't going to youth clubs. But there needs to be more clubs based for that age group.
Yeah, definitely.
No, just a place where people can hang out.
To distract them from other things.
It's distracting from crime, basically.
Yeah.
Unlike their parents and grandparents who came to this country with dreams of streets paved with gold, today's black youths have no illusions about life in this city. For them, the streets are paved with racism, compounded by high youth unemployment. With pride, they refuse to accept that because of the colour of their skin, they are uneducable or have unrealistic aspirations. They fight against categorization as underachievers and therefore fit only for a life of ostracism and exploitation. They know they are different from their parents, as the only home they have is Britain. Black people have been in Britain since Roman times, and for sure they are here to stay for a very long time.